Welcome to Pale Blue Pod, the astronomy podcast for people who are overwhelmed by the universe but want to be its friend.
Aw, that's us. Hi, I'm Dr. Moiya McTier. I'm an astrophysicist, a folklorist, and a friend to the universe. I am always looking out for it. I've got its back.
Yeah, you do. I have noticed that about you, going to the universe's bachelorette parties. And I'm Corinne Caputo, writer, fun person, another friend to the universe. And we are joined this week by a very special guest. She is the author of the upcoming release, The Six, The Untold Story of America's First Women Astronauts, which is out this week. So you can get a copy wherever books are sold. So please welcome Loren Grush.
Yay, I'm so happy to be here.
Yay.
Thanks for joining us.
We're really happy to have you.
I mean, Corinne, we have to explain our backstory, right?
I know. I've dropped it before in the pod that I used to host a astronaut game show, and Loren was my amazing co-host. I played a very strange billionaire type person, although I only played myself. Like, I really was not in a character at all, but Loren was very good at balancing out a lot of that with real facts about science.
I was the scientist, or the pretending to be a scientist role. And I would list out all these dangerous facts about going to Mars or the moon in a very long monologue that made everyone very scared to go to space.
As they should be.
Yes.
It's terrifying.
It was a needed dose to ground us, I think.
It's funny, I'll tell people those are very real facts, when it comes to the radiation environment or the risk of crashing into the surface. And I'll tell that to people, and they're actually quite surprised at how difficult it would be to live there.
Yeah, I think for Mars especially, people are like, no, we're like days away from doing that.
No,
it's kind of like, well,
not.
I don't know.
It'll be the hardest undertaking humanity has ever achieved.
I hate Elon Musk so much. That is his fault.
He's definitely spreading the wrong rumors about how easy this can be.
Yeah, absolutely. But I liked that you always had those facts. I was on a couple episodes. I was at a couple of shows for astronaut training. That's how I met Corinne. But I didn't know what the origin of the show was. It's like, how did you two meet and make astronaut training?
I brought the show to Caveat, who hosted it, and then they introduced me to Loren.
I am a journalist, but also a recovering theater kid. So I think it was just like a match made in heaven, because, I was able to reach really deep into the past and to pull out my performance skills.
Yeah, the comeback that our inner children dream of.
Yeah. Yes. Take that, theater teacher who was so mean to me.
I never had a theater teacher who liked me. I think I'm not a character actor. And there was always a theater teacher who's like, go harder, like do the full thing. And I was like, I just like want to be here. I don't really want to like do the character.
You're there for vibes.
Yeah, and that wasn't a thing yet. So. But we are in a very cool space today. Loren, can you tell us where we are?
Yes.
We're recording?
We're recording from Mission Control.
We got exclusive access today.
What an honor. What Mission Control exactly? Like, NASA has many outposts and positions. So where is this one located?
I think for this podcast recording, we should be in NASA's Johnson Space Center Mission Control.
Yes.
As that would be, I'm sure there's plenty of security in the way that would actually prevent us from getting in there. But
oh no, we got all the clearances. Don't you worry. We're a very important podcast, people.
They said, "Oh, you guys come right in."
Yeah, the Pale Blue Pod. We love you. Yeah.
But I want to talk, Loren, about your incredible book that comes out this week. It's called The Six, The Untold Story of Our Female Astronauts, which I did not know about. I knew about Sally Ride, but I did not know about the other five, which I think makes a lot of sense.
That was the impetus for writing the book. And truthfully, I was the same. I didn't really know much beyond Sally Ride either. It was only when I started digging into her history, I realized there was a group of six of them, and it easily could have been one of them, any other of them, to be the first American woman in space.
Yeah, I think that's so cool about the book. I think that a lot of NASA stuff is just like how there was, there were many men before this who like kind of died or sacrificed or something for it. And we remember the person who made it there, and we're not thinking about like the full scope of everyone involved. But I'm curious how you first learned about the other 5 women.
Yeah, so my go-to story has been, I've been reporting on space for about a decade now, nearly a decade. And when I first started, I was very overwhelmed. I thought because that I grew up in like a space household, my parents worked for NASA growing up. I thought, oh, I've got this. I know everything there is to know about the space beat. Could not have been further from the truth. And I was just also very intimidated. I felt like anytime I would go to a space event, I was maybe one of a handful of women in a sea of men. And it took a lot of energy when I would go to, say, a launch at Kennedy Space Center, not to just like run out the door and go back to my hotel. So I have always been very keenly aware of just, the male-dominated industry that I report upon, and also the press corps has been dominantly male too. Now, it's definitely, I know so many great women reporting on space. In fact, I consider them all some of my best friends, and I'm so lucky to know them. But we also do kind of cling to each other in times where we are surrounded by mostly men. And so that just got me thinking about, people in the space industry and the women who came first. So that just kind of prompted me to look back. And that's how I discovered these first 6 women. And I just also thought, oh, no one had actually written a book about the 6 of them as a group before. And I thought that would be a great opportunity.
Yeah, it feels like a book that I would have guessed exists. And I'm really glad you created it, because it is a huge like gap in the market.
There are definitely stories about them singularly, many of the women have written their own books. There's a great biography by Lynn Shure about Sally Ride, but I just thought them as a group, I thought the group dynamics would be great to examine, and it was really fun. And also, each of their flights are just so interesting. So it really kind of wrote itself in a way, because I thought it just had a very natural structure to it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Ooh, I love when authors say that, because for me, that's one of the hardest things to decide when it comes to a book. So can you tell us a bit more about the bounds of this? Like, what did you decide to include and exclude, and like why?
So what I decided to exclude was quite a fair bit, because in reality, this is a biography. It's 6 biographies in one.
Yeah. It's 400 pages.
Yeah,
it's a
pages,
big boy.
Yeah. And also, these women are extremely accomplished. So being able to include every single thing that they've done was just impossible. So essentially what I did include was I tried to give a snapshot of, where they were when they first learned about the astronaut selection process. I also went into the history of women trying to fly to space. I believe, that's famously known as the Mercury 13. Obviously, there's some controversy over that name. That's not what they refer to themselves as. But we know them as the women who passed the same tests as the Mercury 7, and they very much wanted to keep training for space, but were ultimately denied that opportunity. And then I took us through the women's selection process, which I think is just a fun chapter, just because I thought I had an understanding of what goes into astronaut selection, and I definitely did not.
Yeah, it's intense.
And it's definitely very intense, and also very subjective. And,
as with any selection committee where you're choosing humans to do a thing. Yeah.
Yes.
And maybe I maybe thought there was like some algorithm that they, put into their calendar, and it popped out, oh, these candidates, should be the ones selected. And obviously that's not how it works. And then take them through training, their experiences, waiting for their assignments, the selection of Sally, which is such a big moment for the astronaut corps and for the entire country. And then I dedicate a chapter to each of their flights leading up to the Challenger explosion, which kind of bookends the book. And I tried to not leave it on such a tragic note. So there is an epilogue that goes into all of the amazing things that they've done since, but it really mostly focused on their inaugural space flights, just because otherwise I would have to write 6 books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, would that be the worst thing?
Yeah, if they want to keep re-upping those, I'd be happy to
Make
do
it
it.
a series.
Keep going.
Did you ask about what surprised you most in the research? Because I'm sure you had to,
I do want to hear that.
learn a lot for this book.
Yeah, so back to what I was saying, I was definitely surprised at the selection, both of the astronauts and of Sally. As you'll learn, a lot of it really came down to one man's decision, George Abbey, who was the director of flight operations at the time. And he was just very a mysterious man, a mysterious figure among the astronauts. And so everyone was always kind of trying to guess or discern how he was making these decisions. And he just never really opened up about it that much. And even when I spoke to him, he was not very talkative. I mean, he just kind of said, "Oh, well, I just, I picked people who had the right requirements for the mission, and that's it." I was like, "All right, well, that does make sense."
That's so funny. Like, there might have been more than 6, though. So
Yeah. Then also, I think I kind of went in thinking that, oh, these women were going to be this tight-knit group, and they were going to be best friends, and obviously, as a woman myself, I should know that that's obviously not the case. You are closer with some people than you are others. Everyone has their own different and unique personalities. And I also enjoyed how that reflected in how they handled certain situations. So, for instance, there's a great scene about the makeup kit that NASA created for the astronauts. And a lot of people react as we are now. We're just kind of shaking our heads. But I also thought about it too. It's like these people are public figures. And I know that whenever I go on TV or if I want to present myself, I wear makeup. And so some of them weren't so opposed to the idea of taking makeup to space because so many cameras were on them all the time. And so obviously, we all have different reactions to these things. And so that was really neat to write about.
And you presented it really well,
Thank you.
I think.
Yeah, I love the tone of the book. I think it's one of those rare nonfiction books that you kind of feel like you're watching something unfold and happen and not just like kind of bored facts or going on. And I think a lot of NASA content is just inherently interesting. To me, at least.
I'll also give credit to the women themselves and their space flights. Like I was saying, each of their flights was just so different and had something unique about it. I mean, Judy's first flight before the Challenger accident, I mean, they had this insane abort that they had to deal with. And it was the first time they'd had an abort on the launch pad. And so just kind of chronicling that moment was just so fascinating to write about. And then, Kathy Sullivan, she was the first American woman to do a spacewalk. Then Anna came next, and she's the first mother to fly. It's just, they each were kind of checking these like major historical milestones off with each of their flights. And so there was just no way to get bored, because if I wanted to turn away from Anna's flight, I could turn to Shannon's flight, or I could turn to Judy's flight. It was just each one had such a unique story to tell.
Yeah, I had never thought about, in the beginning of your book, when you first mentioned that Anna was the first like mother to fly, I'd never thought about that ever, or just like if any astronaut was a parent or not. And I was just like floored and oh my God, how cool.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because I opened the book with her and how she's about 8 months pregnant and she's overseeing the flight. She's actually the lead Cape Crusader, which is a term that astronauts give themselves when they're support personnel for flights. So she worked a lot with Sally leading up to her first flight. And just the idea that she was, 8 months pregnant, watching over the cockpit, I just thought that was such a beautiful scene to open the book with. And I remember I sent that to someone who is a big, space buff. And he was just saying to me, it's wild that they let her do that. That I don't
that they let her sit in a chair.
Well, I think they're just NASA's so safety conscious. I don't think a pregnant woman would be able to do that for
I think
anymore.
That's why I had never thought about it. I had just decided in my head that like that would never happen.
Right.
I would be so righteously angry in in all of their shoes at different points in this book. I had to put it down several times because I was fuming on their behalf.
I have heard that, yes.
And even now, like, people thinking that this Cape Crusader job can't be done by a pregnant person is just wild to me.
Right. And it wasn't just, I mean, obviously they were allowed to do it back then. I think they just weren't sure how to handle those things. But whenever they did find out some of the women were pregnant, they were immediately banned from flying the T-38 jets that they were supposed to fly. And they
had been flying just fine, like, a few days ago.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And what's great is the women have said that they tell their children that they were flying in the jets, well before they were born. I think is good. It's funny.
That should count towards their experience hours if they ever want to go into space.
Yeah. They're like, I have over 100 hours of flight time, and
I have dozens of neonatal flight time.
Yeah.
How did you go about the research of this book? You mentioned like interviewing George Abbey.
Yes.
That's sweet. Yes. What was that like? It feels like so much more. Like Loren is a journalist, does research, interviews all the time, but this feels like it just encompasses obviously way more decades, way more people than I imagine some of the research you've done before.
This was actually extremely intimidating when I first started. I thought, oh, yes, I write articles for a living. It should be no problem. But no, you're exactly right. It's more of a history book and required a lot more archival work and just kind of digging into the depths of the internet and looking under rocks for things that you need or didn't know that you needed. And also, I picked the hardest time to do this. It was during the COVID pandemic, which everyone was proclaiming, oh, it's the time to write your novel. No, it was not the time to write your novel. Because everything was closed. All the archives were shut down. So I really had to get creative and find things online as much as possible. I did everything remotely. I give a shout out to my guy, Paul. Don't know his last name, but he was at the New York Public Library, and he kind of walked me through like the Byzantine archival system that they have. It's just... And so I was able to kind of use that to kind of look up newspapers, magazines, all sorts of literature from the 70s and the 80s that I would not have been able to find otherwise. So that was incredibly helpful. I also FOIA'd material. So FOIA is the Freedom of Information Act, which
cool.
is a journalist's powerful tool. Basically, you're able to request documents or media from the government or any communications between government and private sources. So that's how I was able to get my hands on Sally's press conference, which I have video of. And oh my God, it's just the cringiest thing you could possibly imagine. I love that I have the video because I can see her facial expression each time she answers a terrible question. So that is a special treat for me.
How was she at maintaining composure under the ridiculous questions?
She was phenomenal. And I don't think I would have been as good. I mean, basically, she's the question that gets most of the attention during her press conference is, someone asked her if she wept during the simulations where something went wrong. And she just kind of laughs and defers. But there's another question that I thought was equally terrible, and she handled it quite well. It was somebody asked her, oh, you used to be a tennis player, but you left because you didn't think you were good enough to go pro. Would you have similarly left the astronaut corps if you hadn't been selected to be the first woman?
Oh my God. Oh my God. I quit karate because I knew I wasn't good at this. Like, that doesn't mean I can't do anything else.
But once a quitter, always a quitter.
You're doomed for life now, Corinne. I'm sorry.
That is so frustrating and so impressive. I'm remembering in the astronaut training show, we had a segment where we had our astronaut guests do a press conference.
Yes, that was my favorite section. But
it was my favorite bit too. Yeah. And I think they were given the microphone. They had to stand at the front of the stage, but they couldn't see they were apologizing for something. And there was something on the screen behind them that was like, you ate spaghetti with your feet or something. Yes. And they had to just apologize for it, maintain composure the whole time.
I think I repressed these memories because it's coming back now as you describe it.
I mean, I'm sure that there was similar press training, not to this extent for astronauts, but like there is a bit of like, you're going to have to do stuff, keep a straight face in front of the press.
Yeah, one of the things I've been saying a lot is obviously there were hiccups and frustrations when among the engineers and the astronauts that they worked with. But I would say the worst was probably the press that they dealt with. I have to apologize for the press who came before me, because they just could not wrap their heads around men and women working in space together. I mean, the Johnny Carson jokes that I included in the book are just awful, so cringy. And just the questions that they asked the women were awful. And like, it did get better as each of them flew. But, Judy was asked about her hair during her press conference. Anna was asked if being a mother was compatible with an astronaut's duties, and she's surrounded by men who all have children,
Yeah, of course.
So, that was the part where I'm like, wow, I'm embarrassed for the ancestors that I have.
Yeah, for sure.
But you can make a better legacy.
Yeah, exactly.
At least your questions will be better.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Corinne. Moiya is checking out if anyone will let her run a mission real quick, and it gives me time to thank our patrons who support this show every single month. So thank you as always to our Sun-like stars, Lissa and Peyton. I hope you are having an amazing day. And you can support us, hear your name on this podcast, and make it to our patron star chart, all by supporting us on Patreon for just about $1 per episode. If you sign up for an annual membership, you get 13% off, 1% for every constellation in the zodiac. Pretty good. Find the star chart, Patreon info, and more at our website, palebluepod.com, or by going right to patreon.com/palebluepod. And if you can't support us financially, that's fine. We love you. You are still space. Another great way to support us is to share the show with your friends and leave us a rating and review. And I'd like to recommend a multitude show for everyone out there who likes to play or watch games. It's called Games and Feelings. Games and Feelings is an advice podcast about games. Join Question Keeper Eric Silver, permanent guest Jasper Cartwright, and various multitude folks as they recommend games, answer advice questions, and play whatever quizzes Eric comes up with. They cover every single type of game: video games, tabletop games, party games, laser tag, escape rooms, D&D podcasts, the companies and workers that make these games, any game-related thing you can think of. Advice questions include: how do I convince people who have only played Monopoly to play the new board game I grabbed? Is an escape room a good third date? Is an escape room a good date? If you like what you hear and want to level up your emotional intelligence stat, subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts to Games and Feelings. New episodes every Friday. And finally, cozy season is coming up. We're in it. I have a recommendation for you. Puzzles. You can indulge in the timeless pleasure of assembling Ravensburger's extraordinary jigsaw puzzles. Ravensburger's premium quality puzzles are crafted with meticulous attention to detail, bringing you an unparalleled puzzle-solving experience. With a rich heritage dating back to 1883, Ravensburger puzzles have become an integral part of families' lives across generations. Share the joy of puzzling with family and friends, knowing that your cherished puzzles will stand the test of time. Enjoy a mindful moment and immerse yourself in a world of captivating colors, stunning imagery, and intricate designs that will delight people of all ages. Regardless of your preferences or skill level, you'll find a jigsaw puzzle that suits you perfectly, thanks to the wide range of imagery, themes, and piece counts available. Start small and work your way up to over 40,000 pieces. If you're up for the challenge, and I think you are, shop Ravensburger on Amazon today. Okay, back to mission control. Oh, I'm curious, we talked about the tone already, but I'm curious how you kind of balanced that like narrative storytelling tone with a lot of these facts and things that you wanted to include.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing was I really wanted to get a sense of place, when I was writing about it. So I really tried. And one of the best advice I got when I started the book was to actually treat it like a screenplay.
That is good advice. I did feel that.
Yeah.
I did feel that.
I think first of all, I'm not trashing any nonfiction people who've come before me. This is my first book, and I'm sure there are plenty of critiques, but I think it can be easy to just kind of get into that like listing of fact style, and I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes in my own writing. And so I really tried to stick to that advice when I was writing this, is to think of the book as a series of scenes, and that you're writing the screenplay and to try and visualize it in your mind. And so that was ultimately how I went about choosing things. But also, like I was saying, some of the scenes they were just written for me. Like, for instance, I just think the coolest part is Anna's flight. Her mission was to go save some satellites that had failed when they deployed in orbit. And in just a weird twist of fate, she was on her way to the Today Show to talk about the space shuttle mission that was in orbit at the time that launched those satellites. But she was going to talk about something else. But when the satellites failed, obviously the Today Show wanted to ask her all about those satellites. Yeah. And then they asked her, do you think NASA will go save them? And she's like, I don't think so. And then she ends up on the mission that, is sent to go save the satellites. So it's just, there are little things like that throughout the book where you're just like, whoa, that's an amazing twist of fate and it was just so fun to write when those things happened, because it was really quite easy to just kind of lay it down on the page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Have you incorporated any of that like scene first approach in your journalism since?
I hope so. I definitely would. I feel a good anecdotal lead is just kind of my favorite thing to sink my teeth into. So, but I need to be writing more features. Those are more kind of conducive to feature writing. So you're inspiring me to, I haven't been good about that. I've been writing a book.
Yeah, no, it really, I mean, we've talked about this. My husband's writing a book too. And he's like, oh my God, I haven't like published like this, and this yet. And I'm like, who cares?
Yeah.
You're writing a book. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Give yourself so much grace.
Yeah.
During this period. It's a lot. You were talking earlier about being able to bounce back and forth between their stories because they're all so interesting. And I'm wondering if that's how you wrote it, or if you like wrote Anna's story and then wrote Judy's or something. Because when you're reading it, it goes back and forth chronologically in a really interesting way that manages to avoid being confusing. So congrats.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes, no. And that's always been kind of my writing style. I've never really actually fancied myself a writer. Like, I always think of myself as kind of a more logical person first, but I kind of approach my writing in that way. I think of my work as a puzzle. And so I'm all about outlining and structure. And so, yes, if the moment comes to me where I'm like, oh, I know what to do for this section, it might be 3/4 of the way through the book, but I'll write that down and then I'll come revisit it later. So I'm very happy to hear that you followed along well, because I've always been concerned about that. But you're right. All of this was kind of happening around the same time. The book is really only set primarily in 78 through 85 and 86. So it's a very short amount of time. And so a lot of the things that the women were going through were all happening kind of simultaneously, or with the backdrop of someone else's flight going on. But I found that interesting. It kind of reminded me like of a Pulp Fiction type story in a way, or, or that kind of narrative interweaving structure, because, like for instance, Judy's abort, you're very invested in that when it's happening with Judy, not realizing that it's having an outsized impact on Ray at the same time. So I just found that to be kind of fascinating.
It's always nice to see that reality doesn't happen like a domino effect. Like everything is happening at once.
Yes.
Yes.
You don't get to just wait for your turn.
Exactly. Yeah. Isn't that so annoying? Or actually, maybe I don't. Maybe I do want it to happen all.
Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have a favorite of the 6, or do you?
Oh,
well, I want to know if you have a favorite of the 6, and then also like your favorite part to write.
Ooh,
great question. I will withhold my favorite of the 6.
We can all guess.
Yes, you can guess. I did really enjoy writing about Judy's abort. That's one of those things. Oh, there's a term for it. It's like a flashbulb memory or whatever, because it was such a scary moment for everyone that they all remembered it very vividly. And so that one, I felt as if I really was transported back to when that happened. And then I also really enjoyed writing about the competition, like George picking Sally. And then also Anna, when she was trying to see her daughter before her flight, really touched me. I thought that was such a beautiful moment. And I loved the fact that she had to do it twice. she had this beautiful moment. She's like, I saw my daughter and I was ready to go. And then they scrubbed the flight and she had to do it all over again the next day.
That's how it often goes.
Yeah.
I think emotionally for me as a, like, outside of the book, as a regular person, I'll like have a moment like that, and then if I have to do it again, it's like meaningless to me. Yeah. It's like, oh, I didn't need that, and I don't need it again.
Right. We already did this. We don't have to cry
I did the high
anymore.
and the low.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Oh, another thing I'll say I did enjoy writing was I did have sections where I took a beat and just kind of explained what was happening to each of the 6 of them during a moment, and that I really enjoyed, because it was just kind of like a snapshot of everybody. Everybody had a memory of what they were doing during a certain point of time, and so that was when I felt like they were the closest together, because it was just like, oh, here's this one event that ties everyone, and it made them felt like a cohesive group in that moment.
Yeah. And it seems like a lot of their work can be independent, and I think I had the same thought going into it that you had mentioned earlier of, like, these are best friends.
Yes.
Like, you're going to see the 6 women in a row walking down the hallway, like, in slow motion, and that's what this is. And, like, I've not been best friends with, like, my female colleagues in the past. Like, that's totally normal.
Right, exactly. Right. But it was fun learning of who was closer to others. You know, Sally and Judy were close. Anna and Ray were close because they were both doctors and they were both married to astronauts. You know, it just made sense. But, you know, Sally and Kathy flew together, so they grew close that way. You know, it's silly to think that it would be any other way, but, you know, you kind of have to have that moment where you're like, yes, women are unique and different, and we all have our own dreams and ambitions.
I don't think it's silly. You know, one thing that I learned from your book was that the women weren't allowed to fly with each other during training. So they weren't allowed to spend that type of quality time together. And you said in your book that that's one of the things that made it so they got closer to some of the other men in their astronaut class. And I think that there are definitely systemic things that NASA did that prevented them from forming those close types of bonds. You know, all of the, you've called it a competition, like breeding that type of competition among them probably didn't help.
No, definitely. And also, I talk about this too, and they're very adamant when they came in about not being considered like the girl astronaut, the woman astronaut. They very much, they probably scoff at the title, but, you know, they wanted to be seen as one of the guys. And I definitely appreciate that sentiment, but I think things have definitely evolved for us now, where it's like we also want to be treated equally, absolutely, but that we have kind of evolved in our way of thinking, where it's like, oh, but we also celebrate what makes us different as women. But they had to kind of, back then that wasn't really a luxury for them. They had to very much be like, hey, we're not different in any possible way. We are the same. And
it's also an era across the board in, like, the aerospace industry or not, that was like, there's room for only a few of us. So it's just way different than stuff now.
No, I wish it were more different.
Same.
I'm being honest.
We're not cured. We're not cured.
We're definitely not there yet, for sure.
Loren, I'm curious how you hope people respond to this book, and how do you want people to engage with it? Do you want them to get really angry and put the book down a lot like I did?
This may sound cheesy, but I truthfully just want people to learn about these women. And I think I went in thinking that it was going to be this one story, you know, of just constant frustration. And the truth is, there are moments of frustration for sure, but it's really just more about them and how they navigated their, they were working a job, you know, they were working a job with a very intense spotlight on them. But the parts I enjoyed most were just learning about how they felt about doing that job and, you know, their hopes and dreams. I loved when they got angry. I loved when, you know, they were sad. That's the part that makes me relate. And so I think it's just kind of making them human. And also, I think one thing I'd like for people to take away, that I definitely took away, there's no path to being an astronaut, nor do you need to have things figured out from day one. That's been an issue for me my whole life, because I think a lot of people think I knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. And that's definitely not the case. I mean, I grew up with space parents, but as a kid, space was not cool to me. What your parents do is definitely dorky and not neat. And everyone whenever they were going to college or figuring out, post high school, I felt like they just kind of knew what was the next step. And I kind of just fell into journalism. And that's when I realized, oh, I like this. And what if I wrote about space? But it took me a long time to get there. And I feel like that story is also in the six too. I mean, some of them, yes, were dreaming of being an astronaut their whole lives, but others didn't even think about it until NASA opened up the selection process. And I also think that is a great lesson for why being inclusive is so important, because obviously they didn't think that they could be astronauts until they saw that. So when you open up access to things that we considered too limiting before, you find a whole group of people, and you might find your first woman astronaut to go to space, because Sally was not one of those people that had a lifelong dream to do it.
Yeah. I'm bizarrely, maybe not bizarrely, but so comforted hearing you say that. Just as a regular person, I'm like, yeah, I don't know what I want to do or what I want to keep doing. And I think I, growing up, thought being an astronaut was something from, childhood that you're training for. I have an ex-boyfriend who I remember so clearly when he told me, no, you would have had to been doing stuff already if you wanted to be an astronaut. And it was the first time someone had kind of said that to me. And maybe he was right. I had studied English and things are slightly different. But I was like, how dare you say that? Doors are closed? What do you mean?
But also, I mean, that's all decisions. That's decisions that NASA makes, right? They don't have to be those decisions. They're just making those decisions because that's how they've designed their vehicles. That's the program they're running. But there's actually a great nonprofit that I think it's a nonprofit that I wrote about last year called Astro Access, which is all about trying to send a person with a disability into space. And awesome. I think it's just such a great goal, because I also thought, oh, you have to be physically fit and you have to have all these different attributes to go to space. But when I was talking to the people in the program, and as I've learned through reporting, these are just design decisions. Now, obviously, it might be harder for the engineer to come up with the new spaceship design, but ultimately it makes things safer for everyone, because if you're designing for everybody with everyone in mind, then we're going to have less safety issues. A great example was an astronaut a few years back had to abort a spacewalk very early because his helmet was filling up with water. Now, obviously, he needed to breathe, but there was the blindness aspect of it. And this has happened to astronauts who have spacewalked before, is they can go blind and then they'll have to abort the spacewalk. But if we design for that to happen, and for people who have limited vision to fly, those situations would not be as dangerous as they were in the moment.
Right. And they could even happen.
Yeah.
You kind of could accomplish that task of the spacewalk. Right. Yeah. That's so interesting. I had not heard of Astro Access. That makes so much sense.
You should have them on your podcast.
Noted.
Yeah, because it's not like able-bodied people can't then become disabled in space, and on the way back you're just going to be like, oh no, sorry, you can't get on the spaceship.
Yeah, exactly.
What? I mean, that's the whole point of universal design, is that if you make it good for the people on the outskirts of the distribution, then it will be good for everyone.
Absolutely. And I even talked about it in the book too, when it came to the spacesuits, right? So Anna was very instrumental in the early days of the spacesuit design, because they were hoping to make a small and an extra small upper torso, which is I've heard it referred to as a Mr. Potato Head. You stick in the arms and the legs of the spacesuit, but it's the size of the torso that, fits your body. And they ended up creating the extra small. And that kind of came full circle in a way, when a few years back when NASA was trying to perform the first all-female spacewalk and they realized they didn't have proper suit sizing, one of the women bowed out because she just didn't feel comfortable in the suit that she was in. And while it's not because the reason they rescheduled it was not because there was no extra small, but it did kind of shine a light on those decisions that were made many, many years ago. And that is kind of having those like repercussions into today is that, oh, well, we didn't prioritize these types of upper torsos. Therefore, we don't have proper sizing for everybody when they need it.
Yeah, I remember that so clearly. I don't know if we were doing our show at that point.
I think we were. I think actually
that was 2019.
Wasn't that the PR Nightmare? Or no.
Yes.
Yeah,
that was the impetus for the PR Nightmare segment.
When we did PR Nightmare, oh gosh. I can't believe I'm admitting this. I thought it was a safe space in the whole of Caveat. No, so yeah, whenever we did PR Nightmare, we'd always tie it to real world current events. And one of them was the canceling of the all-female spacewalk. And then another one was the hole that was drilled into the Soyuz that leaked.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That was still... I have not kept up with the news. Was that resolved? Who did that?
Not particularly. They like kind of mentioned that it was a manufacturing thing. I think they did it, but they simply brought the Soyuz down and then they just never talked about it again.
That's so funny.
Now we've been having Soyuz leaks for another reason, but they're saying it's micrometeoroid debris. So I don't know. But
We'll see.
A lot of people don't actually believe that.
Yeah. Well, in our show, we did train quite a number of people to plug holes in a cardboard board. So we can deploy those people at any time if NASA needs help.
I'm sure those skills are super
helpful, so valuable. That segment was so silly. I remember like prepping the little bags of like materials that the contestants could use to plug their cardboard with, and never ever was I giving them the right things. It was pieces of paper, random things of Play-Doh.
Thank you, Corinne.
And I'm sure NASA's doing it way better than that.
No, it's just fix it with what you have in your pocket.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that they need to launch something.
Yeah, we're supposed to leave the mission control.
Yeah. So, Loren, if there's any last messages you had about the six, any last calls to action, now is the time.
Well, I think the story is, more relevant than ever right now. We're trying to correct, decades of mistakes by sending the first woman and the first person of color to the moon through NASA's Artemis program. And just this April, NASA assigned Victor Glover and Christina Cook to Artemis 2, which is going to send them to deep space and around the moon. And so they will be the first woman and the first person of color to go to deep space. That's not happening until next year, but, plenty of time to get amped about it for sure.
Nice.
And, like I said in the book, soon we're going to learn who those people are that will walk on the moon. And hopefully, thanks to the six, they'll have an infinitely easier time with the world and the press.
Yeah. Oh, I hope so too. That's so exciting.
And real quick, how can people find you? Where are you online?
Sure. So I'm a staff writer for Bloomberg, so you can find my articles there. I'm also Grush Crush on Instagram. I probably should have had a more professional Instagram handle, but
nope.
Can't give it up now.
That's too good.
The sunk cost is too great. And I'm also Loren Grush on X, formerly known as Twitter. But I just lost TweetDeck access, so I'm I'm like floundering there these days. So I'm reinventing my social presence, and I'll let you know how that goes.
I think we all are.
Yeah, it's a time of
We'll
flux.
tag you.
Yeah. I guess I'm also on Threads. I'm not sure if I'm Grush Crush or Loren Grush. You can find me either
Yeah, it's funny. I downloaded Threads immediately, never opened it, forgot
Yes.
it is there, and I think that is the case for everyone.
It's just I'm such a desktop person, and if it's on my phone, I just don't think to go there. So I know that probably labels me like extra millennial, but it's the truth.
No, I'm so much more willing to like take action on something on my desktop.
Yeah.
Like even I don't have my texts on my desktop anymore, and then a text will come in on my phone, and I'm like reading it and not doing anything about it. Like, oh, if this was, I'm not in work mode.
Yeah.
Well, this was so great. I'm so glad we got our gang back together for this.
Oh my gosh, so lovely. Space, the great unifier.
Yeah,
Truly.
that's exactly what it is.
We'll all die in it,
And you're so right. Maybe that should be the tagline for the pod.
Space. We're all gonna die in it.
Yeah. A podcast dedicated to making space less scary. We'll just make it way more intimidating. Okay, well, you listeners can buy The Six wherever books are sold. If you're listening to this episode the day it comes out, it's still a pre-order. But if it's any other day, go out and get it. The Six by Loren Grush. And we'll see you soon. And remember, you are space.
Pale Blue Pod was created by Moiya McTier and Corinne Caputo with help from the Multitude Productions team. Our theme music is by Evan Johnston, and our cover art is by Shay McMullen. Our audio editing is handled by the incomparable Misha Stanton.
Stay in touch with us and the universe by following @PaleBluePod on Twitter and Instagram, or check out our website, palebluepod.com. We're a member of Multitude, an independent podcast collective and production studio. If you like Pale Blue Pod, you will love the other shows that live on our website at multitude.productions.
If you want to support Pale Blue Pod financially, join our community over at patreon.com/palebluepod. For just about $1 per episode, you get a shout out on one of our shows and access to director's commentary for each episode. The very best way, though, to help Pale Blue Pod grow is to share it with your friends. So send this episode, this link, to one person who you think will like it, and we will appreciate you for forever.
Thanks for listening to Pale Blue Pod. You'll hear us again next week.
Bye.